Welcome back to the Football Fellowship podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be naming one player every Premier League club needs to sign this January transfer window. We have gone away, looked at the stats, and tried to find the weakness in each team, and hopefully the player we name can help them the most.
Welcome back. That was Toby with intro, and he's joined by myself, Mevin, and of course the scouting departments of each team clearly have not done their job this January because there are not nearly enough transfers. So this video hopefully comes to you at a very poignant time. Toby and I are going to be taking turns pitching a player to each other, and then collectively we've got to decide between ourselves amicably, I got to say no arguments, which player we think is the best for that club. And we're going to start off with the bottom of the table, Sheffield United. Toby, who have you gone for?
I have gone for a loan deal from Chelsea, which is Alfie Gilchrist. I figured Sheffield United, I don't think are going to have a big budget this window. I think they're possibly going to be preparing maybe to go down to the Championship. But I think this deal, it can help bolster their defence. He's a really versatile defender. He's only 20 years old. He can play a number of positions, centre-back. Probably right centre-back would be his best suited in a back three. He can play right back or right wing-back. He's a really versatile player. I think he'll probably do both clubs some good. He'll get some game time, and I think it would just help shore up Sheffield United's defence and also help them bring the ball out a bit more because he's a really good ball carrier as well.
I don't mind that shout. I think it's a very good shout. Me personally, I don't think Sheffield United need defenders. I think they need forwards and goalkeepers. And I think forwards they're going to have sorted. They've got Brentford and Diaz on the way on loan. So I've gone for a loanee just like you, but I've gone for a loanee goalkeeper because I personally don't think Wes Foderingham is good enough. I think he makes too many mistakes. And therefore, I think it is a loan return for Aaron Ramsdale because of the fact that Arsenal have been knocked out of the FA Cup now to Liverpool, that I don't think he's going to get any more game time this season. Whether you think that's a right or the wrong decision by Mikel Arteta, he clearly prefers David Raya. And I think there's no point Aaron Ramsdale still staying on the bench, being number 2 to David Raya if he's not going to get any game time. So I think it should be a return to Sheffield United for Aaron. So we've got to agree. Is either of us willing to budge?
I would say yours is the better pick, but I'd say mine is more realistic. I couldn't see Ramsdale leaving this season in any capacity, to be honest. But I actually would probably say Ramsdale would have a bigger impact. As you say, Sheffield United have got a number of decent defenders. So I'd probably be happy to go for Aaron Ramsdale for this one. I think if that could happen, it would be huge and it would make a massive difference to them.
Cool. I agree then. Yeah, let's go for Aaron Ramsdale for that. So I think that is 1-0 to me. We're going to be keeping track of who has which person out of us two has the most picks chosen at the end, just to have a little points winner, just to keep it spicy. But we should probably say, because we didn't even decide before we clicked record, should we do this based on which player is going to have the most impact for that club?
Yeah, I think a combination of impact and I suppose like how realistic it is. I think if any are far-fetched, that surely doesn't help your argument.
Sure, there's a couple of mine which I'll start with. I know this is unlikely to happen, but yes, then we should move on then to Burnley, and I'll go first for this one since you went first for Sheffield United. And I think for Burnley, I was tempted to maybe choose a forward, but in the end, I decided to go for a left back because obviously Burnley, when they got promoted, they really wanted to sign Ian Maatsen from Chelsea. That didn't work out. Chelsea didn't want to let him go. He's now supposedly going to Borussia Dortmund on loan for the remainder of the season. And I think it's one where Charlie Taylor's come in. He wasn't very fancied by Vincent Kompany, but he's done an okay job, but it's an area which Burnley could definitely improve upon. So for me, I think that they should sign Ryan Sessegnon from Tottenham Hotspur. The 23-year-old has been out of favour at Spurs for a long time now, mainly due to injuries, but also due to the numerous managers who've been there not really fancying him. And he can someone who can come into the Burnley side, play at left back, and could really get his foot on the ball, play really attacking football like Maatsen did for them in the Championship. And I think it's one where it benefits both Spurs, Burnley, and Ryan Sessegnon. Who have you gone for?
That's a good shout, that one. I have gone for a forward, as you mentioned. I think with Kolyosha also being injured, it's an area where they do need to improve. And I have gone for Andreas Skov Olsen, the Danish winger. He is from the Belgian league, as Vincent Kompany has liked to recruit from. He's managed in, playing for Club Brugge. He's a 6'1" Danish winger. He's played almost 30 times for Denmark. 8 goals and 3 assists this season in 16 starts. Really good carrying stats, which I think is important for Burnley if he's going to be playing in that sort of 4-4-2 wide. Looks like a really good player. Cost around 20 million, and I think for the player you get, that's a bit of a bargain.
Ooh, I do like your shout, I'll be honest. The only issue I have is, like I had for Sheffield United, is that there's a high chance that Burnley are going to go back down to the Championship. So would a player with that reputation likely join Burnley? Maybe, if it depends if their agent can negotiate a release clause. But I think yours is definitely the more exciting choice, so I'm happy to concede on this one.
Thanks. Yeah, the only thing I would say for Sessegnon, I really liked that shout, is I thought you were maybe going to have him playing left mid. I think he's much better as a wing back as well as opposed to a fullback, so maybe wouldn't fit into Burnley's side too much.
Yeah, that's a fair shout, but he's very versatile. I mean, obviously started his career at a right wing. I think it was at Fulham, so he could play numerous positions for company needed. But I think your shout is the better one due to the recent history of Burnley's recruitment, where they sign the players from. I think I'm happy. I can't remember his name. What was his name?
Andreas Skov Olsen.
Andreas Skov Olsen. Okay, fair enough. Well,
keep an eye on him. Keep an eye on him. I think he'll get a big move in the next couple of seasons if, for some reason, Burnley don't sign him after we send all these suggestions to them.
I know, scouting departments around the country. What are you doing? But yeah, we should move on to the next team is Luton Town, and if you can't guess, we're going reverse order of the Premier League table. I think similar to Burnley, and Sheffield United, there is a high chance that Luton Town are going to go down the season. So any player who does come, they're going to want reassurances about one game time, but also what happens if they were to get relegated. So I think a loan deal would be perfect. And I've gone for Fabio Carvalho. Yes, the Portuguese international who plays for Liverpool got recalled from RB Leipzig earlier in January because he just wasn't getting the game time. And Liverpool want to send him out to get game time. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, before we started recording, Hull City had confirmed that they were going to be signing him, not signed, sealed, delivered. But Fabrizio Romano did give it the here we go. So I think my suggestion is a bit null and void, unfortunately. Who did you go for, Toby?
That is unlucky, but I love to take a tap in. So I have also gone for a loan move, exact same reasons. And to be honest, a pretty similar player, I'd say, in terms of position. I've gone for Elliot Anderson from Newcastle. I think he's a player that we heard a lot of at the start of the season, that maybe he was going to get some game time in Newcastle, a really exciting young player. Hasn't quite got the game time at Newcastle, a few sort of sub-appearances here and there, but I think he'd fit into that Luton side well. He can cover a number of positions, playing in central midfield or playing off from the left just behind the striker. I think would fit him really well, rotating with Brown when needed. When he was just 18, 7 goals and 6 assists in 21 games for the mighty Bristol Rovers. So yeah, I think he'd be a good shout. Works, again, on one of those where he gets the game time, is good for Newcastle, and he would make a good impact to Luton, I think.
Oh, see, the thing is, I'm not sure entirely if he's good enough to get enough game time for a struggling Luton. If I'm being completely honest, I think when Newcastle, where he's at his parent club, I think they're more likely to give him chances. But I think in Luton, because they're such a tight knit fit unit, that I think he's not maybe good enough at this moment in time, but he arguably will be. But to be fair, you get the point anyway, because there's no way that Fabio Carvalho is going to end up at Luton. So that is definitely more realistic at this moment in time. Then we move on to Everton. And who have you gone for Everton?
For Everton, I was thinking, maybe a loan spell for a defensive midfielder. I think that's an area where they don't have much cover. And obviously, given their financial situations, signing a player probably isn't the best bet. But for Everton, I have gone for they should sign nobody. They are in a really bad financial state. And I just think their squad is pretty decent. I don't think they need to sign anyone. I think they're still playing well. I think they all pretty comfortably stay up in the end. And I just think at the moment, the best thing is to just wait until the summer and have a look at their squad and think things over then. I think signing someone in January transfer window is unnecessary, and I think it would probably cause more difficulty than it would improve their squad. So I've gone very boring and gone for they should sign no one.
And you've also conceded the point, because that is not the whole point of this whole video. You're meant to suggest at least one person. even if it is completely unrealistic. So therefore, I win because I've suggested a physical human being who is a player.
Well, let's see who it is first. If it's Mbappe,
It's
I'm taking the point.
Everton wish. Yeah. God, could you imagine Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Dwight McNeil, and Kylian Mbappe? No, I have gone for on loan Hannibal Maidry from Manchester United, who they have been linked to, so it's not completely unrealistic because of the fact that he plays in that number 10 position. And I think in Man United, at the moment in time, he's just not getting the game time. He has been linked with clubs like Sevilla as well, but Everton apparently have some interest in him. And I think for him, he wouldn't get much game time at Everton, but I think for Everton it would be a good deal because they get someone on loan whose wages are relatively low with a high ceiling, and he could also be backup to Abdoulaye Doucouré because I think that's at one area of the pitch for Everton which they don't have clear backup. I think some areas they can get by with some players playing a bit part and in rotation, but I think the big one is if Doucouré gets injured, there's no one in that Everton squad who quite plays a position like him, so I've gone for Hannibal Maidry.
Yeah, I think that's a decent shout. He probably would get some game time, especially at the moment. You could probably see Doucouré dropping in, maybe to play alongside sort of Garner or Gomez, and then Hannibal playing behind the striker. You'd probably play both of them. Doucouré's pretty versatile in that sense. So yeah, if they are linked with him as well, I think that's a pretty sensible shout. But he'll have low wages as well, so that's good for Everton.
Exactly, low wages, there's nothing to worry about. And then moving on to Brentford, who have you gone for, Toby?
I have gone for a forward. I think they really need reinforcement in that sense, in terms of chance creation and chance conversion. And I have gone for Crescencio Somerville from Leeds. He is having a fantastic campaign in the Championship at the moment. He'd cost probably around 25-30 million, so a pretty decent chunk, but I think he'd be worth it. 12 goals and 6 assists so far in the Championship in 23 games. He is looking at the 96th percentile for carries across Europe's 15 leagues below the top 5, so sort of those second sort of Eredivisie, Portuguese League, Championship, those sorts of leagues. And he leads the champs in almost all sort of dribbling and chance creation stats. He looks really, really fantastic. He'd bring some energy to Brentford and some much needed firepower up front, especially with Tony coming back in. That combination would be beautiful.
Yeah, that's not a bad show whatsoever. However, I don't think Leeds will be willing to let him go so easily. So I have gone for someone who I've never watched kick a ball in his life, but his stats are really impressive. I have gone for Joshua Zirkzee, I think his name is. He is a Dutch 22.
Oh, Zirkzee, former Bayern.
Oh, is he? Well, that's good to know. That helps me. Dutch 22-year-old, plays for Bologna, 7 goals and 2 assists in 19 matches played this season for Bologna. So they were doing really well, actually. Although, like I said, I haven't watched too much Bologna or of him. But I do think he's the perfect archetypal Thomas Frank and Brentford signing. A young player who's on the up, and just before they get mainstream interest, get him for Brentford. And I think it's one where they definitely need a forward player because of the fact that, Johan Weiss is injured at this moment in time and Brema's injured. There's rumours about Tony leaving as well in January. They definitely need to sign a forward. And for me, Joshua Zirkzee is that forward. Who are we going to go for here?
I really like Zirkzee, and I almost put him down for a number of teams who probably needed a striker. But I think that's the thing; he is definitely a striker. And I maybe if they play a top two, they could play Tony alongside him. I'm not sure if they only signed him in the summer as well, Zirkzee. So January move it's a difficult one because I don't think either of them would probably go this window, but I think both of them would be really good additions to the side.
Yeah. Oh, this is tough, isn't it? Should to be fair,
let's go for Zirkzee because I haven't put him down for anyone else, and I wanted to, and I think that's enough for Brentford to be able to sign him as well.
Fine. I mean, if you're gonna give it to me, I'll take it. But yeah, that was tough, and I don't really know.
No, I really like Zirkzee. He looks brilliant. He's one that I think Arsenal should probably be keeping an eye on. He's didn't get too much game time at Bayern Munich. He's a good tall striker, and he's really efficient in all areas. I really like him.
Yeah, he's 6'4", and I just thought to myself, he's going to be perfect at holding the ball up for that Brentford side. So yeah, we'll go with Joshua Zirkzee for Brentford, and then moving on to Nottingham Forest. Who have you gone for, Toby?
Nottingham Forest, I've actually gone for a player that they have signed on loan before, and I think they should sign him again, and that's Keylor Navas. I think seems to be a lot of change between Turner and Vlachodimos. Neither seem confident when they're coming in. Turner has made a few mistakes this season, and Vlachodimos is not as good with his feet as Turner. I think they just need to bring in a solid number one, keep him in, and Keylor Navas was amazing when he was there last time. He saved them so many points, so many big performances, and I think they can just stick him in goal and just not worry at the moment. So yeah, I would go back to Keylor Navas. He loves it at the City ground. Get him back in on loan.
Oh, yeah, that is such a great shot, actually. And I think you've won it the point with that one, because I thought to myself, because of the fact that Tabo, when he's injured and you can't always guarantee he's going to be fit, but also because of the fact that the wide players for Nottingham Forest are also quite injury prone at times. And I didn't quite like Dominguez playing on the wide. I think he's such a fantastic player, but I think in midfield is where his position is best. So I went with Ahmed Diallo on loan from Manchester United, just because of the fact that he had a fantastic season at Southampton the season before, Sunderland the season before, in which he played, and then he did really well for Southampton when he played there. But I think Sunderland. I keep saying Southampton, Sunderland. But I think just because of the fact that he can't get minutes at this moment in time, Anthony's clearly ahead of him, Garnacho's clearly ahead of him. And I think it's one where he needs to go get some game time after his really bad injury. And I think Nottingham Forest, he would get game time. And it's also a good opportunity for Man United to send a player there to see how he's going to develop. But I just like Navas. I think Nottingham Forest do need a goalkeeper, absolutely. And I think I'm going to concede on this one.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I liked the shout of Diallo as well. I think, like you say, they could do with a bit of reinforcements going forward, especially with Awani. He's probably their best forward player, being injured. So yeah, I think they're both pretty good shouts, but I'll take Navas.
Yeah, which makes it 3-3 at this moment in time. Moving on to our 7th team, which is Crystal Palace. And I'll go first here, because I've been thinking about Crystal Palace a lot recently because of their poor run of form as of late. And also with the rumours that Michael Olise is being linked to Man United. However, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he'll stay at least till the summer until a big bid comes in. But one area of the squad which I thought back in the summer which they needed to reinforce was right back, with Joe Ward, who's a club legend, obviously playing there, and also Nathaniel Klein, but his contract is up in the summer. I think they need a bit more quality there. And a player who at another Premier League club isn't getting game time at the moment is Kenny Tete of Fulham, because of the fact that Timothy Castagne come into the side and done fantastically well. Tete's found himself not favoured anymore by Marco Silva. They played 8 matches in the league this season, 7 starts. But like I said, with the contract up in the summer, Castagne now number 1. The 28-year-old is one of the best defensive fullbacks in the league when he was playing. And I think it's one where he'll fit in perfectly at Palace. Doesn't have to travel too far for his own personal reasons for travel from Palace to Fulham. And I think it's one where worked well for all parties. Palace pay a little bit up front for him now in January to get him from Fulham, and then he doesn't go to another club in a free in the summer.
Yeah, that's a decent shout, and I'm not going to talk too much about Palace because I have the exact same reasons for this pick. It's a right back. But I have gone for Festi Ebizele from Udinese. He's an Irish right back, formerly of Derby County. I'm not sure exactly, I think he's only 20, 21. He wouldn't cost a lot of money, sort of around 10 million, but he looks really, really good, and especially good going forward. He's actually in the top 1% for successful take-ons for fullbacks across Europe's top 5 leagues. Really dynamic fullback, really, really, really good going forward. Maybe potentially not so good defensively. He's still got good defensive numbers, but not exceptional, which maybe puts question marks over whether he'd be a good signing for Palace. But I think if Palace can snatch him up now, I can see him getting a big move in the seasons to come with the way he has been playing in the last couple of years. Really, really good player and one to keep an eye on.
Oh, fantastic shout. Do Crystal Palace need a player for now or for the future, would you say?
It's a good question. That's a good question. I think, Klein and Ward, isn't it? Which... I'm not sure. I think Tete probably fits Palace better, but I think Ebisele would be a better signing for the club.
Yeah, I guess the only thing is, I don't think, because of the fact that Crystal Palace obviously signed Matej Franca in the summer, and he came with a lot of rotation for playing a fantastic wide player. Crystal Palace players don't really get much opportunity. The young ones, especially, unless they're really exceptional. So, is he likely to have his game time stunted, or is he better off staying off where he is, whereas Kenny Tete is more likely to make an immediate impact? Come on, Toby.
Yeah. Let's go for Tete. That's a more Palace signing. It's more realistic.
So I do take the 4-3 lead, but can you make a comeback with our next team, Fulham? Who have you gone for?
Yeah, I have gone under the assumption that, just to make it a bit more fun, that Paulinho may be going to Bayern Munich this January transfer window. So I thought they might need a cover of a number 6, someone to sit alongside Tom Kearney, who's playing really well. As their backup is Harrison Reed at the moment, maybe not the best. So I thought someone who all the loan move talk about at the moment is Calvin Phillips from Manchester City. I think he can fit straight into that Fulham side. He is a really good all-round player, and I think it just makes sense for both. I think City will probably end up selling him in the summer, but a loan move for 6 months if Paulinho goes is a good cover for a fairly similar player.
Oh, that is a great shout, actually. However, I think that, I did this under the assumption that Palhinho is, at the moment, at the time of recording, still at Fulham, and so he might stay. Obviously, signed a new contract, so we'll have to see what happens. But I thought, Raul Jimenez, as of late, has come into form, but before that, he wasn't. And, could it be a purple patch, or does he actually need some proper competition? So I've gone for a striker, and I think Fulham should buy Armando Broja from Chelsea, because of the fact that, I don't think that with his injury issues, and I just don't think he's being fancied by Mauricio Pochettino when he has been fit. And, he had a fantastic season when he was on loan at Southampton in the 21-22 season. He played 32 times, getting 6 goals, and he showed a lot of potential, but he hasn't been able to kick on. And at Fulham, he would get the game time, and then he could eventually take up the mantle from Raul Jimenez, who is obviously coming into form, but obviously is still aging out himself. So, I do like your pick, I'll be honest with this one.
I like Broja as well. I think that's a good shout. How much do you think Broja would cost? That's the question. I think if he's over sort of 30 million, it would put me off. But he's still quite young.
But I guess if you're selling Palhinha and then loaning Phillips and buying Broja, it's not a bad bit of business, to be fair.
Yeah, Phillips' wages could be an issue as well. Obviously, coming from loan from Man City, he's probably on a pretty hefty deal.
Yeah, Broja, I'd say probably his transfer fee if it was. Do you know what? Should we just go? We both got the point on this one because I think they were both really good shouts.
Yeah, I like that. They should do both.
Let's do both. Okay. And then that means our next team is Bournemouth. Bournemouth, who are 11th in the table at this moment in time, doing really well. And you know what? I think they need a backup striker because of the fact that, there's a lot of talk at the moment about Ivan Toney and is he going to move or not. But once Toney does eventually move, and I think he will, I think Solanke will be the next English striker, which a lot of people start talking about. 12 goals this season so far, 1 assist. Really, really doing well so far for Bournemouth. And, Kiefer Moore at 31, I don't think he's a quality backup that Bournemouth need. So I think they need to invest now for a younger striker who can develop under Iraola to play the system, who then eventually can take over for Dominic Solanke. So I've gone for Tommy Conway of Bristol City. The 21-year-old is a 5'11" striker. So far this season he's played 19 matches, he scored 6 goals, and obviously he did score that equaliser for Bristol City against West Ham in the FA Cup recently. And I think he's a very talented youngster. Arguably Bristol City don't want to let him go, but I think he's one where he'd be happy to make the step to Bournemouth because of the fact that, they've got a relationship. Lloyd Kelly was at Bristol City, then moved to Bournemouth. And I think it's one where Bournemouth, could grab themselves a bargain if they move early. Who have you gone for?
It's a good shout. I have gone for, though, to cover their defence. Obviously, Kirkesh and Utara now both injured. Utara was covering him left back, not even a conventional left back himself. I've gone for Ben Johnson from West Ham. He is still very young, 23. He used to get a lot of game time at West Ham in certain spells, but he's really dropped off the radar there and hasn't played too much recently. He'd probably only cost around 10 million, and he can play anywhere across the back four. Very versatile. He's pretty quick. He's strong. He's maybe not the best technically on the ball, but I think he could fit into the Areola side given time and cover any sort of injury space that they need, because their defensive sort of backups I just don't think are quite up to scratch at the moment.
Yeah, it is a decent shout. Like you said, I just don't think he's good enough on the ball for Areola. And if Bournemouth under this new ownership are going to be going for that style of player long term as well, I'm just not sure if its on the ball qualities are going to be good enough. But also, West Ham, are they likely to let go of someone they brought through their own youth system? Kufal is getting on in age. I think he is maybe 30, 31. And, Ben Johnson is clearly the future going forward. This is tough.
There are rumours of Johnson leaving, but I think even Arsenal were looking at him, to be honest, which is crazy. I think that's a good shout with Solanke. I think that's a good shout with Solanke in terms of that there's a chance that they could do with a young striker.
Well, I was actually going to concede to Ben Johnson if it was only on a loan.
I know. I think it would be a permanent. I think he'd be a good squad player for them.
Well, if it's permanent, then I think I would have to push for Tommy Conway.
Yeah, let's get the Bristol boy in here.
Yes, the Bristol boy to make it 6-4. And then after Bournemouth, who is after Bournemouth, Toby?
It is Wolverhampton Wanderers. Um, I'll go first for this one. I feel like I've done a classic Wolves and looked at the Portuguese league, and I figured they've got a really good attacking unit of three when they're all there and they're all fit in Juan, Cunha, and Neto. But I think when if there's any injuries to those, the drop is pretty significant in terms of excitement. So I thought, why not go out and splash big and get another forward? And I've gone for Marcus Edwards from Sporting, the English winger. He can play anywhere across the front three, really, and even in the number 10 if needed. He's a really, really good player. We've seen him sort of playing in the Europa League for a number of years, and he's really stood out in that for me. And I think he probably cost around 25 to 30 million if they can get a good deal for him. And I think I'm surprised he hasn't had a move to the Premier. I'm surprised no Prem team has picked him up considering he's English as well. So I just think, yeah, he'd be a really good, not only a starter for them, but a backup as well if needed. He'd bring a lot of energy to them.
Yeah, that's a decent shout. I have also gone for a forward player as well, I will say. But I didn't go for Marcus Edwards, and I did look at him to be honest. But because of the fact that he's a wide player, and I think with Juan Neto, and I think even in the backup you've got Pablo Sarabia, you've got Ryan Adenori, who could, maybe play potentially his best work is further forward. But just behind Mateus Cunha up front, I think there's Kalacic, there's Fabio Silva, but no one's really challenging Matheus Cunha to be the starting forward, and also Cunha also drops deep to enable the wide players. So I think you need a player up front who can start him week in week out. And I think my player, whose contract expires with AC Milan in this summer, is available on free, and he had a fantastic spell while at Frankfurt, but it hasn't quite worked out for him recently. Is Luka Jovic? I think he just needs the right team and the right manager to really unlock his potential. Obviously, his qualities are well known. It's just his recent form, and I guess if it's been a few years, then you can't really say it's form anymore. I guess that is his quality. But I think Gary O'Neill, a manager, I should say, he's done really well with the players he's been given. Will be able to get the best out of a player like Luka Jovic, and maybe potentially be that number 9 who was the real replacement for Raul Jimenez.
I did like Luka Jovic, but I feel like that was about 7 or 8 years ago when he was at Frankfurt. I think since then he's been all over the place. Yeah, Madrid and AC Milan, as you say, and just has not performed at all. I think he'd be on quite high wages as well since his moves to those big European clubs, and I just feel like now he's still well past it. Um, it's such a shame because at one time, like you say, he was a quality player. I would just have question marks whether they would be able to bring that out and if he would even move to Wolves as well.
Yeah, I agree. I remember when we first met at uni. You remember just raving about Luka Jovic, however many years ago that was. But yeah, I will concede to Marcus Edwards because I think he is the more realistic and actually the better signing for Wolves.
Lovely stuff. Moving on to the next team, we're moving into that top half, and we are with Chelsea. Lots of signings previously. Who have you gone for Chelsea?
I have gone for Ivan Toney because I think, to be honest, he deserves a move to a top club, and I think he's good enough. In the 22-23 season, he played 33 matches in the Premier League, 20 goals and 4 assists, and that is not to be slept on. And I think similar to the Declan Rice move to Arsenal in the fact that when Rice moved to Arsenal, Arsenal fans were saying, "Oh my God, he's fantastic. Why is he so good?" But West Ham fans knew all along how good he was, and I think it might be a similar case wherever Ivan Toney goes. Brentford fans will be saying, "Of course, he's this good. We know he's this good." But it just takes a move to a big club and people to watch him more frequently. That I think will be his opportunity. And for me, I think Ivan Toney and Chelsea is a match made in heaven. Who have you gone for Chelsea?
Yeah, that's a good shout. I have gone almost the complete opposite. I think Chelsea need to just try and deal with the squad they've got for now and really not try to sign any sort of big sort of names or anything. Um, I've gone for someone who I think can cover a number of positions for them. Somebody who's been a pretty consistent performer in Europe over the last sort of 10 years, in Thomas Meunier. He's 32 now. He's really experienced. He can cover. He can play in the right side of a back three. He can play right back. He can play right wing back. He can even play in central midfield if needed as well. I think they just need someone with some experience. He's been around Europe a lot, and I think he just come in and do a job when needed. And he would cost not much at all, sort of 5 to 10 million, just to cover when needed.
Yeah.
It's a very boring. It's a very boring shout.
I guess.
It's a very boring shout, but
that's the thing. Yeah.
I like the idea. I
think
like
it is
the idea
sensible.
of Tony, but now with Palmer, I'd like to see him playing the 10, and then I think that then pushes in Nkunku to play striker. I'm just trying to picture. Obviously, Palmer can play on the right. You could have Nkunku in the 10 and Tony up front, and then one of Mudryk, Sterling from the left, which would be pretty nice. It would be pretty nice.
Yeah, but don't you just think that wouldn't Tony up front behind him, Nkunku, Palmer, whoever, Mudryk, Sterling, Madueke, Chukwuemeka when he comes back, wouldn't he just enable all of them to flourish in that system? Because at the moment, Jackson could do it, but he's not really doing it, and he's so young himself, and you need someone who knows what they're doing.
It's a good shout, Tony. I think with a lot of other teams, they shouldn't sign Tony because he is a bit older, and I think they wouldn't get as much value. But I think with Chelsea, they actually do need more older players. Their team is so young, and not just young, but I think sort of quite inexperienced in terms of elite football. And I think Tony would suit Chelsea actually pretty well. If I had to think of a team now you've sort of laid it out, Tony's best destination probably would be Chelsea, and they have the money to go and spend 100 million and not care. So I'd be happy to go for Tony for that.
Yes, come on. Right. So that makes it 7-5 in terms of picks. But next up is Newcastle United. A bit further down the table than I would have thought when I looked. But that is the reality of the situation at the moment. I have gone for Johan Bakayoko of PSV. A player who's been linked with a lot of different clubs at the moment in time. The 20-year-old has played 16 matches in all for PSV this season, 3 goals and 8 assists, and he's been linked with some proper top clubs in Europe. But I think for him personally, Newcastle would be the best side at this moment in time because of the fact that Newcastle are clearly a side on the up, wouldn't mind paying the huge transfer fee and wages that will probably come with it. But also for him, the expectation wouldn't be as high playing for Newcastle than it would be to play for a Man United or a Liverpool. And in that case, I think it'll be perfect for him. He can dovetail with Almiron when he's not in the best form of his life, and then he can eventually overtake from Almiron himself. But that's me. I think they need a forward on the right-hand side. Where and who have you gone for Newcastle United, Toby?
Yeah, very similar reasons. I had some names written down that I thought could be sort of big, massive signings if they wanted to go splash 100 million in terms of Kvaratskhelia, even like Rafael Leao, Nico Williams, someone like that, someone absolutely crazy. But I've gone a step down from that, and I've gone from someone who can play on either wing, but can also play in midfield, which I think was an area I wanted to improve as well. And it's someone who has really impressed me specifically when playing for Spain, and that's Dani Olmo from RB Leipzig. I think he's a name who's gone under the radar in recent years, and I don't think people realise how good he is. He is so good, and so good technically. He is amazing on the ball, and his versatility is a really big key and something that I think Newcastle could probably do with at the moment. He's probably still would cost around 55-60 million, I imagine, because he is 25, so he's still pretty young as well. But I think he is quality, and I think he could go into most sides and adapt to their play. He's really good.
Yeah, I do really like Dani Olmo. I think he's a fantastic player, and that is a great shout. I think RB Leipzig would be more than willing to sell him as well for the right price, which is why I think I have to concede, because I don't think, one, that Bakayoko will be leaving PSV this January, and also I think the Newcastle shout, I don't think he's likely to go to Newcastle, but I think Olmo, I can see it absolutely. So I'm going to concede on this one.
I thought as well, because he's a very different player to Almiron as well, which gives them good balance on both sides. But Bakayoko is a good one, and as you've said, definitely one to keep an eye on. He will probably get a big move if he carries on playing as well as he is, and at his age.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone's bound to make a big offer for him. In that case, now we move on to Manchester United, and I guess I don't know where to start with Manchester United. Who have you gone for, Toby?
Yeah, I think you could probably pick a player from most positions for Man United. For me, in terms of watching them this season, the area with the biggest hole at the moment is the central midfield. I don't think they have any sort of balance in there, especially with Casemiro being out. And I think they need to sign a young six, really, for me, an actual six. And for me, that's Manu Kone from Borussia Mönchengladbach. He's been linked with all the top clubs around Europe for the last season or two, specifically Liverpool as well. He was one name, I think, when we were talking in the start of this season, there's someone that we'd like to see Liverpool sign. But he is absolutely superb. He's got over 4 tackles and interceptions per 90, some of the highest in Europe. And he's also got really, really good carrying, which I think is key for a Premier League six as well, to be able to do that defensive duty, but also be the one who's bringing that ball forward and creating things. Really, really high. I think he's in the top 1% for carries for midfielders in the top 5 leagues in Europe. So really well-rounded, 22 years of age, probably be costing around 40 to 50 million, which, to be honest, I actually think is a bit of a bargain for a player of his quality at his age.
Yeah, that's a great shout. And to be fair, I think you've won this one already because that's a very sensible shout, unlike my shout, because it's completely unrealistic. But I just think Man United, this is just a signing Man United need to go out and do. And it is Victor Boniface of Bayern Leverkusen. Yes, the forward has scored 16, has played 16 matches in the Bundesliga this season, 10 goals, 7 assists, and he is absolutely on fire for Leverkusen. He's obviously gone to the African Cup of Nations at the moment, which would obviously make the deal very difficult to do. But also because Bayern Leverkusen, are currently fighting with Bayern Munich for the title, so there's no chance in hell that Bayern Leverkusen are going to sell him. However, I think that Man United over the past years have really lacked multiple strikers who could do the job. And in years gone by, under Sir Alex Ferguson, they always had multiple strikers. And I don't think that's an issue with having Boniface and Højlund. However, I do have to concede that Kone is far more sensible. So I do think that is the player that we're going to have to go for.
Yeah, Boniface is a really, really good shout, a good player. He's having a great season. I don't think United would splash the cash on that much on a second striker as well. He'd probably be costing a lot with, I think, obviously the amount they spend on Højlund as well. There seems to be quite a lot of trust put into Højlund, but you're definitely right in the fact that they do need a backup because Martial and Rashford playing up front, I don't think is quite the key when Højlund's not going to be playing.
Yes, absolutely. And then moving on to Brighton and Hove Albion, who find themselves above Man United at the moment in time. And I have gone for Thiago Almada, the Argentine international who plays as a number 10 for Atalanta United in the MLS. I think he's being wasted there. I've seen some YouTube highlights and I'm convinced he's going to be a fantastic player going forward. The 22-year-old has played 33 matches in the last season's MLS, 12 goals and 16 assists. He's simply far too good. And I think going to a side like Brighton could be one that's perfect for him. You saw a fellow Argentinian, Alexis McAllister, go to Brighton. They really knew how to develop you into the player to be one of the world's best. And I think if he went to the Premier League and went to Brighton, it would be a fantastic signing for both him and Brighton. And they could definitely sell him on in the future and then make a substantial profit on the move. Who have you gone for Brighton, Toby?
I have gone for a midfielder, but not a 10, rather a 6. I think there is still a massive Caicedo and McAllister shaped hole in that Brighton midfield. I really liked when Gross was playing at right back and they had the two of them. The Gilmour-Gross pivot, for me, it just doesn't seem to work. I think I like it going forward, but I think there's no defensive cover and Brighton have been quite easy to attack centrally this season. So I've gone for Anton Stack from Hoffenheim. He's a 25-year-old central midfielder. And to be honest, I've picked him mainly because of his defensive stats. He's the top interceptor per 90 in the Bundesliga this season. He's 11th for tackles per 90 in the Bundesliga this season. And he's in the top sort of 20 and 30% even for creations and carries as well. Really well-rounded, but someone who can sit at the base of that midfield and do the dirty work for Brighton. Let those other creative midfielders ahead of them play the lovely De Zerbi-style football that we see. They just need some cover because they cannot seem to keep a clean sheet to save their lives at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And to be fair, I do agree in the fact that, not every single Brighton player that they buy has to be someone for the future. Because Carlos Baleba is clearly one of those, but, he's struggling at the moment in time and he does need help. I was thinking to myself that maybe Gross could drop back a bit, eventually Dahoud would find his way into the side, Milner. But I do think that Stack is a more sensible suggestion than going more gun-ho for Brighton, who've probably got a plethora of number 10s and wide players who can play in those positions. So yeah, let's go with Stack on that one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking in terms of their tens, because obviously I know they've got Enciso still to come back, Adingra, Mitoma, March still to come back. There's still quite a few players I think in that position, and they still when they play two strikers as well. One of the strikers is normally dropping back into that 10. Ferguson, Welbeck, and João Pedro can all do that. Um, so yeah, I really like Almeida, and he would a good move into Europe would be really good to see, but maybe not Brighton at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. That's fair enough. And then let's move on to West Ham United. Who have you gone for West Ham?
I don't really like I don't really like West Ham now. I've seen it again, obviously doing it earlier. I thought they need some reinforcements going forward. To be honest, I was kind of looking for a winger, so I don't know why I don't know why I've written this person down. But I don't think anyway that Antonio or Ings is probably good enough cover for Bowen if Bowen's going to be playing up front. So I have gone for Geraldo Becker from Union Berlin. He wouldn't cost much as well, 10, 15 million. Had a really good season in the Bundesliga last year, got Union Berlin into the Champions League places. He had 11 goals and 7 assists in 30 or so games. He's quick, he's strong, he'd fit the Premier League's physicality well. He's not having the best season this season, as neither are Union Berlin. They're way down in the table in a relegation battle and crashing out of the Champions League as well. So they may let him go. But yeah, I'm not really much of a fan of this one. I was thinking maybe he could play on the wing, but I don't think he would. He's pretty much a pure striker, but could be a cheap option given their poor performance this season and how good he was last season.
Yeah, that could be a great shout. To be fair, I haven't gone too dissimilar. I've also gone for a forward player from the Bundesliga, but I've gone for Serhou Guirassy of Stuttgart. Played 14 matches this season, 17 goals and 1 assist. But obviously, because of the fact, he had a fantastic start to the season, but he has tailed off towards the latter end. So that is a bit of a worry. But, for West Ham, I think his £15.2 million release clause is something that is very attractive. There's very little risk when you consider Premier League money involved. I think 15 million for a striker could potentially replace Mikel Antonio, get maybe 10 to 15 goals a season. 15 million, I don't think that's too bad. And at his age, it's only being 27, turning 28 at the end of the season. So I've gone for Guirassy. We've both gone for forwards. Is there one more realistic than the other?
I think Becker's more realistic, but in terms of that they could sign him, I just don't think they will. I think Guirassy's obviously the big name at the moment, and he has been really, really good this season. But Stuttgart are still going for Champions League places at the moment, so I don't think they'd let him go. That's the case. I think West Ham would want Guirassy more, but I think Stuttgart will be less likely to give him up. But because I think they'd want him more, I think we should probably go for Guirassy, do you reckon?
I think maybe potentially Guirassy stays and his ceilings are maybe, no offence to West Ham, a bit higher than them. So let's go for Becker actually.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I think West Ham fans will be disappointed with that. I don't think we even put out particularly good names considering we were arguing for the other persons in the end.
Yeah, well, I think Guirassy is a good player for West Ham. I think it'll be hard for West Ham to convince him to come join them. That's all.
I agree. Yeah. Should we move on to Tottenham Hotspur are the next team? Who have you gone for Spurs?
Yes, and now it's my turn to not be happy with who I suggested because of the fact that, I was going to go for a forward and then they got linked with Timo Werner. I was going to go for a centre-back and they have been linked to a centre-back. But I've gone for another one just because I really like him. However, he's not the quickest and I think that's an issue. And he's very young and I just don't like he's not good on the ball either. I've gone for
who was it? Big Steve from down the pub.
Yeah, Sam Allardyce 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I've gone for Ousmane Diomande of Sporting. 20 years old, 6'3", got a very high potential, Ivory Coast international. But I think his defending is his best qualities, which is something Spurs need. And I think he would be a good backup to both to Romero and to Mickey van de Ven. However, I think if they're going to sign this new centre-back from Serie A, I just don't think he fits in anywhere. And I think it is one where maybe, I don't know, who have you gone for? Because I think it's got to be better than me.
Well, I've gone for a bit of a cheat code here because I have gone for a Serie A centre-back. And it is the centre-back that they are linked with. It's Radu Dragozan. I think he's going to be costing around 20 million. He's only 21 years old. He's got really good defensive stats this season, 6'3", and he's got really good goal threat as well. He's one of the highest XG performers for centre backs across Europe, which is good for Spurs because I don't think they have too many sort of attacking options in set pieces and things like that. And I've just gone for this because it's the man they clearly want. They're linked with him. Ange wants him. He'll fit their style of play, and a centre-back is exactly what they need at the moment for cover, as we saw in those games when both Romero and Van de Ven were out.
Yeah, I think that's very easy. Going for the player that they're currently linked with is a bit of a cheat, but yes, I think you do get that one. Then moving on to Arsenal, your boys. So I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, this was a difficult one. I wasn't exactly sure where to go. To be honest, I think what I wanted was a player to cover right wing for Saka, someone to come on when he's not playing well, or when he's pretty knackered because he plays almost every minute and he hasn't been performing in every minute he's played for Arsenal this season. But since the Liverpool game, I have realised we do need a striker. We need someone to play and rotate with Jesus, who can bring a similar style of play, but can also be very clinical, have that combination of Nketiah and Jesus, and then move Nketiah on, essentially. So I've gone for Victor Gyökeres from Sporting. He was obviously at Coventry last season, 21 goals and 10 assists in the Championship. And this season in Sporting, he's carried it on and he is playing even better, I would say. He's got 19 goals and assists in 15 games this season. Really, really good carrier and a good creator as well. Fantastic hold-up play. And he would be probably half the price of those sort of Tony and Osimhen's that you're looking at. He'd probably be around 50 to 55 million. Very young still as well, so someone we can mould into the style of play of how we want to.
Yeah, that's a very sensible shout, I'll say. Because I have gone for Victor Osimhen. Because of the fact that I think sometimes you make a statement signing like Arsenal did with Declan Rice, and you just pay the money and then the player just is world class, and I think it could be one where Victor Osimhen is. Obviously he has had a bit of a patchy injury record, but they have been for extreme injuries. Like one, he fractured his cheekbone, which nearly took out his eye. He had another one where he dislocated his shoulder bone. So I think his injuries have been very rogue, but he is known to get injured, so you can't take that away from anything. And I think it would also allow Gabriel Jesus to play every now and then. But also Jesus could be the backup for Bukayo Saka when he maybe eventually gets pushed out to the right and needs to rotate because of the fact that Osimhen is playing up front. I know you're probably saying he will cost a lot, and he will. 130 million euro release clause, which equates to approximately 113 million pounds. But if you're paying 100 for Declan Rice, you may as well just pay a little bit more for someone who's going to score you potentially 30 goals a season.
I would love to have Osimhen at Arsenal. I think he is brilliant. I just can't see it happening. I can't see us spending that much again after the summer we had. We spent a lot in the summer. We spent over 200 million in the summer. And I'm not sure if Arteta wants to replace Jesus. I feel like he likes him too much, and I think he'd want someone to sort of be like a plan B as opposed to having Jesus as a plan B.
Yeah, I do agree. I think Victor Gyökeres, like I said, is the more sensible shout, but I think Osimhen is the more fun shout.
Honest, I would. If we could get Osimhen, then that'd be insane. But I don't think we don't have the capacity.
Fine, Gyökeres it is. Moving on then to Manchester City. I want you to go first on this one.
This was very difficult given Manchester City's squad and how stacked it is. I've gone for someone who is probably deemed world class, one of the best players in his position. At least he was probably deemed that a season or two ago. Maybe not talked about as much at the moment. I'm not sure why. But also I think someone who brings something a bit different to City. It is Alphonso Davies from Bayern. They obviously have Ake and Gvardiol who can play left back, but the way obviously they've changed their system, they don't have maybe a fullback who can get forward as much, or someone who can cut in and really run. And I think Davies could be that. I think he could someone who has such a raw talent and is probably one of the best technical left backs in the world, as well as being insanely fast. I think he is someone that Pep could mould into a world class left back, one of the best in the world. He would cost a big chunk, probably 75 million would be my guess, as he's only 23. But I thought something a bit different, and maybe the one position where they could do with another player. Not too sure. What about yourself?
So I haven't gone for left back because I think of the fact that the way Guardiola's played recently is probably more because of the fact of the players that he has at his disposal rather than the fact that he wants to play like that. But it's an area I think that they've got enough players who can play left back and play left back well. You've still got to remember they've got a Sergio Gomez who did barely even gets a game in at the moment. But I've gone for a midfielder, and I know Man City already have a plethora of midfielders, but the issue is they haven't properly replaced Ilkay Gundogan from the summer because of the fact that when he's on the ball, he controls and dictates the tempo of a game to a T, and they need someone to do that alongside Rodri and Kevin De Bruyne. And for me, they need to go back and re-sign Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa. Very ambitious. I don't think it's going to happen. But I don't need to also speak about the qualities of Douglas Luiz because of the fact that he's had a phenomenal season for Aston Villa, being one of the key players, and I think someone who would be perfect for that Manchester City midfield. So now we've got to choose between two completely unrealistic signings, and I don't know which one to go for.
I think straight away for me, as soon as you said Douglas Luiz, that was probably the play. I think I was looking for a midfielder originally. I don't think Mateus Nunes and Kovacic are there quite yet, and I think Luiz could be done. I think he could be bought from City by City, to be honest, if they wanted to splash the cash. So I would 100% go for Douglas Luiz. I think that's a really good shout.
Oh, thank you. Well, we will take Douglas Luiz. And then we should move on to Aston Villa, who are now without Douglas Luiz. But who have you gone for Aston Villa?
I had a look at their squad, and I don't know why I was surprised, but I was surprised at how well covered they are in almost all positions. I think they've got a really, really good squad going through into their bench as well. So this was actually quite difficult for me. There were two areas I'd say that stuck out. One potentially being a striker back up to Ollie Watkins. I know they have John Duran, but maybe there's quite a big jump in difficulty. Quite a big jump in how good they are. And I know Moussa Diaby can play up front as well. And it was right back as well. Matty Cash seems to have fallen out of favour a little bit. Cons has played right back quite a bit. So I've gone for a right back who I think fits Emery's style of play maybe a little bit better in terms of Arnau Martinez from Girona. He's really, really good on the ball. He's got nearly 0.2 assists per 90. He's got a very high pass completion, and he's also got decent defensive stats, especially blocks. All of those stats within the top sort of 10 to 15% across Europe. Only 20 years old, someone who could be moulded by Emery. Spanish as well, would help for the build-up play, and probably would only cost around 15 to 20 million.
Yeah, I think Martinez is a great shout, but I think the issue is Girona going for the La Liga title at this moment in time, somewhere they wouldn't expect to be, but they are, so I don't think they're going to try and jeopardise their season by going for him. I instead did go for that striker that it would be back up to Ollie Watkins, but in my thinking I thought, if you're going to Villa, you know you're going to be second choice to Watkins, so you've got to be able to play other positions as well. And I know he's been linked very recently to Manchester United, but I have gone for Daniel Marlon because of the fact I think, he's been very inconsistent while at Borussia Dortmund. So far this season, he's played 15 times, only 11 starts, and 5 goals. But he can play off the left, off the right, and down the middle. And you don't have to be consistent when you're only playing, a squad role. And I think for Aston Villa and under Emery, he'll be able to do that to a T. Right. How are we going to decide who goes for this one? Is there one more realistic than the other?
I think you're right about Girona. Probably, I know he doesn't play every game, Martinez, but I still think they wouldn't let him go, given the season that they are having. And Daniel Marlon, they have got quite a few options up front. Dortmund, decent attacking options, so that's probably more realistic. I think in terms of how the impact they'd have would be pretty similar in terms of just squad players. So I think for realism, we'll go for Marlon for that, if you reckon.
Yeah, I think so too. But I also think Martinez, I know what you mean about him not playing a lot so recently because of the fact that this kind of switched to 3 at the back and playing wing backs, and he can't really play wing back or right centre back. But that he's been playing right centre back, so I don't know. Not at this moment in time. But then last but not least, Liverpool. Who have you gone for, Toby?
I've gone for a big statement signing here. I've gone for one that I think if you sign them, you win the league, and you definitely win the league if you sign this player. I wish it was Mbappe. I have gone for someone there's a few question marks about them potentially leaving. Obviously, their contract, I think it was summer 25, I think it runs out, so just over a year left on it. And that is Joshua Kimmich from Bayern. I think he is the missing piece of that Liverpool puzzle, sitting in as a number 6, dictating the play, but also an exceptional defender and a reader of the game. I don't think this is particularly realistic. I obviously don't know behind the scenes in terms of what's happening with his contract or whatever. But for me, if you go out and splash 80, 90 million on Kimmich, he's worth every penny. And I think you win the league and you are favourites to win the league next season as well.
Well, I would love Joshua Kimmich first and foremost, but I also think that he's not the combative midfielder we need in that six. But also, I think we need a centre back more at this moment in time because of Joel Matip's injury. And I think the centre backs who are covering are Ibrahim Konate and Joe Gomez. And if, they both of them have a patchy injury record themselves, so if one of them got injured, it'd be just Jarl Kwanzaa and Virgil van Dijk, and we're trying to compete in all four competitions. So I have gone for a centre back, and this is completely unrealistic, but I think he would be the one I would want to go for, if not now, definitely in the summer, and that is Edmund Tapsoba of Bayer Leverkusen. I'm just rating Bayer Leverkusen at this moment in time, but he's a 6'4" centre back, plays in Dutch for Burkina Faso, so obviously him being an AFCON might be difficult to get the deal done. But I just think, he's got all the qualities needed. He's right-footed, but plays on the left centre-back for Bayer Leverkusen. He can also play in the middle of a three or on the right-hand side, so he could perfectly play alongside Van Dijk or instead of him if need to with rotation. And I just think that, on the ball, his qualities are amazing. Aerially, he's such a threat. Defensively, he can block out any striker. And I think he's Premier League ready with his physicality as well. So for me, it would be Tapsoba. I am going to overrule you and say I've got my pick. Yeah, just because of the fact that
you just no argument. You just
yeah. Well, just because you won like 5 teams ago, so
I don't think Kimmich won't leave Bayern. I think he'll be one of those players who stays there for his whole career. It would just be, I think you still need a 6, and he's probably one of the best in the world. But as you say, Tapsoba is probably more realistic, even if it's not particularly, like you say, with Leverkusen obviously playing so well.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I just think, you could have put it, compared to Joshua Kimmich, that's all it is. He is just slightly more likely, is what I'd say.
Yeah, I reckon.
Yeah. And that takes us through all the teams. And obviously, like I said, you won ages ago. Although, to be fair...
Did I? What was the score?
Yeah, in the end... it was 12 to you, 9 to me. I know that's 21, but we gave ourselves both a point. I think for Fulham it was... not Fulham. For one of the teams, we gave ourselves both a point. So yeah, you won a while ago because you had... you got the pick for Arsenal,
I got a lot in a
Tottenham,
row, actually, didn't I? Yeah.
Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham, Brighton, Man United. So yeah, you clearly outdid me there.
Well, we'll take it. Shall I run through the one player that we've picked for each club as a little closer?
Did you write them down?
So we have got... Sheffield United signing Aaron Ramsdale on loan. Burnley signing Andreas Skov Olsen from Club Brugge. Luton signing Elliot Anderson on loan. Did we go for Elliot Anderson for Luton?
We did, because Fabio Carvalho is going to Hull.
That was it, yes. Luton, Elliot Anderson on loan on a technicality. Everton signing Hannibal from Man United on loan. Brentford, Xerxes signing him on a permanent. Nottingham Forest get Keylor Navas back on loan. Crystal Palace signing Tete from Fulham to sit right back. Fulham themselves, we went for a draw on that one. Look at Emmanuel Brozier from Chelsea and Calvin Phillips on loan from Man City. Bournemouth signing Conway from Bristol City to be their backup to Solanke. Wolverhampton Wanderers signing Marcus Edwards from Sporting. Chelsea to sign Ivan Toney, the big one, probably the biggest name on the list. Newcastle to sign Danny Olmo from RB Leipzig. Man U to sign Kone from Gladbach. West Ham to sign Becker, apparently, because both of our shouts weren't very good. Brighton to sign Stack from Hoffenheim. Tottenham to sign Dragazan from Genoa, as they probably will be, and will probably be confirmed, potentially even by the time this video comes out. Arsenal to sign Gyökeres from Sporting. City to sign Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa, a huge one there. Villa to sign Daniel Marlon as backup to Watkins from Dortmund, and Liverpool to sign Tapsoba from Leverkusen to back up that defence. There are our names.
And there you have it. Yes, scouting departments everywhere are going to be looking at our picks. I can tell if you're playing Football Manager, then you're definitely going to be like, oh, that's a great player for my team. I think we've really come onto something there, Toby.
Yeah, I reckon if none of these transfers happen, then Prem clubs are missing out because, as you say, the Football Fellowship podcast, I think we know better than the multi-million pound football teams.
Yeah, the recruitment teams, the scouts, the analysts, they don't know what they're doing. They need to hire us to be able to sort out their transfer strategy for them. And thankfully, this will be there. So in a few years' time, we can come back and laugh at this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that went on for a lot longer than we expected. But that is it for this episode of the Football Fellowship podcast. Thank you all for watching and listening. And we will see you in the next one.